Welcome to Mom's True Tea, the podcast where moms can spill the true tea on various thought-provoking topics and challenge beliefs about motherhood and life authentically, unapologetically, and without judgment. I'm your host, Kendall Lasha Williams. Hey. Welcome to part 2 of processing the loss of estranged parents. I received such great feedback on episode 1, so I decided to do an episode 2. If you haven't listened to episode 1, I encourage you to do so. Pause right here, go take a listen, and come back to this episode. I think that episode is maybe like 15 minutes. I'll start again by emphasizing the loss of a parent is never easy, especially when you are close to that parent. But when that parent is estranged, it can be very complex and difficult to navigate that loss. And it comes with, and will most likely come with, a lot of mixed emotions. This person has been out of your life for whatever amount of time, or they were never present in the first place. And now they've passed, and your emotions and feelings can be very conflicted. And that's normal. Also, you feeling angry is normal. Mourning that parent is normal. Or feeling nothing at all is also normal. You may even feel guilt because you didn't try to reconcile. I personally dealt with some guilt, feeling like I could have made efforts to reconcile with my dad. In 2010, my son was graduating from high school, my older son. We have family in town, and someone had given my mom some contact information for my dad. She handed me the paper. I didn't think much of it because I was moving around with graduation party details and etc. for my son. When I looked at the paper, I realized it was an address for my dad to reach out to him. And it was in the prison where he was serving time in Florida. And I just couldn't do it. And that's because I didn't want to get trapped in another transactional experience with my dad, because what has been in the past, when I would reach out to him in the times that he served time, he would always ask me for things, money, or send him certain things for commissary. And it became very transactional. As a matter of fact, the last time I saw my dad 10, 14 years ago, he asked me for money. He said he wanted food, and I know it was for him to actually get high because, as I've stated many times before, he battled with drug addiction for quite some time. So I never reached out to him. And I sat with that guilt, wondering what he would have said. Would he have apologized for not being in my life? Just what that relationship would have been at the time, based on the fact that he was incarcerated. So I battled with the fact that I never, ever reached out to him. And that was also me setting boundaries for once, because I've always wanted to please my dad, even though he was estranged. Anytime that he did come around or did show up, I was always doing this dog and pony act to please him, or whatever he wanted, gave it to him, or whatever he needed, gave it to him, just because I wanted that love from him. But I just wonder if we could have really established a true father-daughter relationship with him being locked up. So I never reached out. We expect to feel one way in our grieving, but our emotions vary. Imagine not seeing or speaking to someone and you get a call from a prison chaplain telling you that your estranged father has passed. Like, wow. How do you process that? I sat with a lot of emotions that day when I got that phone call. I didn't know how to feel. In one respect, I felt sadness. In another respect, I was glad that he had been set free spiritually. And then in another regard, I felt even more abandoned, because I'm like, here it is. We never get to reconcile, and we never get to have a conversation. And then imagine you decide to pay for the memorial service of someone who abandoned you. Like, he left me. He's estranged from me, but by no fault of mine. But here I am laying him to rest. Like, how? I didn't owe him anything. But what makes it more difficult losing an estranged parent when they transition is the finality of it. If that parent wasn't in your life growing up and you've already had questions why they weren't there in the first place, now they've passed, you never get the closure you may have been searching for. How do you finally move forward? By acknowledging and feeling any of the emotions you may be experiencing and without judgment of yourself. I know it can also feel isolating as well. In episode 1, I even mentioned how sometimes I would feel like I don't have the right to talk to someone who's lost a parent they were close to when I was never close to my dad. You kind of feel like your sorrow or your mourning should be less, or like you shouldn't be mourning at all someone who wasn't there in the first place. But your feelings are warranted and just as valid as someone who has lost their not so estranged parent. So don't negate that. Some ways that I have been able to process this form of loss um, has been by acknowledging whatever emotions I may feel unapologetically. And it can be years post losing that person. And these feelings still can come up, they still can evolve, they can come out of nowhere. As of late, as I've stated in episode 1, I've really been thinking about my dad. He's really been on my mind. He's really been on my heart. I've even been having a conversation with him. I know that may sound crazy to some people, but hey, it is what it is. Another way that you can process this loss is seek therapy. I've said it time and time again. A therapist that practices in loss and grief or family dynamics could be very, very helpful. I have also been somehow divinely connected with someone who has a similar experience losing their father who was estranged. And we share very similar feelings and emotions, and even had a conversation recently. And she also said, I've been thinking a lot about my dad lately. And it was just like, wow, that's crazy. And it helps you not feel so alone when you're processing this experience and these feelings with someone who has also, or they are also experiencing the same thing. I've also shared my feelings honestly and truthfully and authentically with my husband, who's been very supportive and very empathetic, or I've talked to a close friend about it. Sometimes all we need is someone to really listen to us. Also, journaling or writing down how you feel could be helpful, or even writing a letter to your estranged parent. I wrote a letter to my dad sharing important things that he had missed in my life, forgiving him, hoping he was finally free, telling him that I was finally happy, I was in a great relationship. He had already met my children for a brief period of time when they were very, very young. I think one was 5 and the other one was like 1 or just born. But sharing those moments with him as if he were present in that letter. I read that letter at his memorial service, and after the service, I tore it up and I got rid of it. That was my closure, or so I thought, until after Father's Day this year. But it gave me closure to write down those feelings, write down those emotions, and write it personally to him, trusting that he did hear me in spirit. Forgiveness is also a way to help process this loss. But again, only if you're ready. Because remember, in episode 5, I said forgiveness is a personal journey. And if you're not ready, don't force it, but find a way to find peace, to release yourself from the resentment, if at all possible. And then there's do some self-reflection. Like we think, oh, we really wanted this person to be in our lives, even though we know they may have battled addiction with alcohol or battled addiction with drugs or been abusive or whatever. And you still want that dynamic with your father or your estranged mother being present in your life. But sometimes God removes people from your life for your own protection. So, could the experience of being estranged from that parent have been for your protection? Think about it. Did it make you stronger? Did it make you resilient? Did it make you be even more motivated to move forward in a positive light or make you a better parent? So those are some of the things that have helped me process the loss and also get through it. And then it never goes away. Processing this form of loss is very complicated, and you may never ever get the closure you want or the answers you may need, especially if this parent has passed away. You may feel various emotions, and that's okay. You may even reflect on the past, like what could have been or what happened, but don't get stuck and lose sight of the future. Just remember, healing takes time and you don't have to rush it, and don't let anybody make you rush it. Thank you for listening into this authentic and personal episode to me of Mom's True Tea. If you found this episode helpful, like episode 1, please share it with someone who might benefit from it or it may help them. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your streaming platforms. Your support helps me reach more people who need to hear these authentic and unapologetic, important conversations and need to be a part of the Mom's True Tea community. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so blessed to have a community where I can show up as my most authentic self because I don't know what else to be. Don't forget to favorite the show, leave a review, and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platforms to stay up to date on new episodes. Subscribe to my newsletter at momstruetea.com. Follow us on all socials at MUMSTRUETEA, and be sure to share and stay tuned for more thought-provoking topics and real talk on Mom's True Tea with Kendall Lasha. Until next time, remember, you need you just as much as anyone else. So stop playing about you. Okay? Bye.